Hi co-creators and co-creator supporters. Today we are making salt dough ornaments. Now some of you might have made salt dough shapes, sculptures, ornaments even in your school days, especially if you are one of our co-creator supporters. Let me get this hair, it's going to annoy me the whole video. Great. They're fun and easy to make, and the only small disadvantage is they take a while to cook because you want to cook them very slowly so they just kind of dry out. So in your craft bag today, you should have a craft bag that says Tuesday on it, and maybe it says Creation Ornaments. You should have a salt and flour mixture that's pre-measured, some cookie cutters. You might have this exact package of cookie cutters or 3 animal shaped cookie cutters. You should have some paint and paintbrushes. Some embroidery floss of various colors to make the hanging strings if you decide to make ornaments. And then most of you probably have a straw. I think someone else besides me has a toothpick, and that's for making a hole. Now I just realized that if you have the smaller animal shaped ornaments, then you probably don't want to use the straw to make your hole for hanging string to go through. You probably want to find something smaller, so you can use a toothpick like I'm gonna use. You can use a cake tester or a skewer. Just find something that's small. A lollipop stick end you could use. I would just find something smaller than the straw section that I might have given you to poke the hole. The straw section will work really, really well for the big cookie cutters, but not so well for these little guys. Okay, so what you'll need from your own house is a mixing bowl, 1/3 cup of water. I know I'm using a solid measuring cup for liquids, but it's okay. This dough is not precise. So you'll need 1/3 cup plus a little bit probably of water. And I started with 1/3 cup in my bowl, and then I have some extra to add in case the dough needs it. You'll need a rolling pin and a surface to roll on. You can do that on a kitchen counter. I have some silpat mats. You could do this on a couple of sheets of parchment paper. You'll need something to mix your dough with, although hands are great. And then you'll need a baking sheet of some kind. And I have parchment paper to line my baking sheet. You don't have to use parchment paper, but it's easy. You could also use a really good non-stick baking sheet, or probably spray the pan with cooking spray because the oven temperature is going to be pretty low. So those are all the things we are beginning with. Now, like I said, these do take a long time to cook, and then they'll need to cool before you get to your painting and decorating, but this video is going to cover mixing, rolling, and cutting out your ornaments, and you can paint them however you want. It's great. We have the cookie cutter shapes, but you could also use any other nature themed cookie cutters that you might have. You could also use round cookie or biscuit or donut cutters and make round ornaments that you then put like a little handprint in. Obviously, if you do that, the round shape needs to be bigger than your co-creator's hand. You also could use a thumbprint and draw or paint shapes around the thumbprint, and I will share examples of that in today's email. So there are all kinds of fun ways to go with this project, and I hope you have a lot of fun making it, and we're gonna get started. So the first thing we're gonna do, I already started with a 1/3 cup of water in my bowl, but you don't have to do it that way. We're gonna empty in, this already has a cup of salt and 1/4 cup of flour in the mix. So we're just gonna dump that in. And this is a really imprecise dough. You know, it doesn't need to be exact. We're not eating it, we're just baking it. And we just wanna make sure that it holds together. It doesn't crumble apart, so it needs to have just the right amount of moisture. So I would normally just get in there with my hands, but I need to keep my hands at least a little clean for the rest of this video. So we're just gonna mix in the salt and flour and dough or in water until the dough starts to come together. Based on the ratios, the 1/3 cup is a little light for this dough. So that's why I say you'll probably need a 1/3 cup and a little bit more. You can see I used a 1/3 cup of water, and my dough hasn't quite come together yet. So we're gonna add a little bit more, just a little bit at a time. Just drizzle a little in there. Get back in there and mix. We don't want our dough to be too sticky because we are rolling it out, but we also want all that flour to get incorporated. This is a really good stage for people to use their hands, especially my co-creator friends. If you want to get in there and use your hands to make this dough come together, it's squishy and a little gooey and a little sticky, and we'll just wash our hands before the next step. So I'm I'm adding just a little bit more water at a time to see if we can get all this flour incorporated. And I actually am gonna get in there with my hands and try to squish all this flour in. This is obviously the best part of baking, is when you can get into the dough with your fingies and make it all come together. I love it so much. Okay, so this dough is coming together pretty well. You can see from how it was a few minutes ago to now, I've got most of my flour incorporated. And this is actually a little bit sticky, so make sure you add your water just a little bit at a time, because I might have to go back and add some more flour now. If it's too wet or too sticky, you definitely want to add just a little bit of flour, maybe a teaspoon or a tablespoon at a time, maybe not even that much, so that you can roll it out and cut it. You want it to be like a sugar cookie kind of a consistency, I think. If you've made salt dough more recently than I have, you might have some more insights, but that is what I'm going for, is kind of a sugar cookie consistency, and this is a little too sticky, and that's okay. So I'm gonna go get some flour, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my giant bag of flour, and just like I did yesterday with the clay sand. I'm just gonna add a pinch at a time. Get that out of the way. And then work that in there so we can try to get a little less sticky. Yeah, that feels better. If all that extra flour that you added doesn't incorporate, that's okay. Just leave it in the bowl. You can compost flour. You can use it for dusting a little later if you're using flour to dust your work surface when you roll out your dough. Yeah, this is feeling pretty good right now. Like I said, we want it a little bit on the dry side because we are rolling. And obviously you can dust your rolling pin and your work surface, but this is going to help it not stick to things as we roll. Okay, so that is pretty well done. This is not a large batch of salt dough. The original recipe calls for 4 cups of flour and a cup of water. So if you really enjoy this craft and you want to make more, awesome, have at it. You probably have flour and salt and water at your house. And if you don't, any kind of flour is going to work for this. So you could get some really gnarly, like this is unbleached. I'm sorry, this is bleached all purpose, which I normally wouldn't use in real baking. But you can absolutely use it for salt dough ornaments. Okay, so we've got a nice lump of dough, and I'm gonna actually try to put it in between my 2 silpats. You can use parchment paper, you can use saran wrap or cling film if you have it. Cling film, that's from me watching too much British Bake Off. And then we're just gonna try to roll it out. You can roll it really as thin or as thick as you want. I'm gonna go for about maybe a 1/4 inch thickness here. And this is also a phenomenal step for my co-creators to get involved in. We're making creation themed ornaments today because our story and our daily theme for today is God tends the earth. And it's all about how creation didn't stop with the stories from Genesis. Creation is ongoing, and you might look around your house and see like, oh yeah, I have living plants that are growing from a seed. I am still growing and learning. My co-creators are still growing and learning. You all, my co-creator supporters, are still growing and learning in some way, I hope. And so, yeah, creation has not ended, and God still cares for us. And so we are making these creation themed ornaments today to remind us not only that God still cares for us, but that we also, that's why we're calling each other co-creators this week, that we get to care for creation too. We're called by God as humans to care for the universe, at least the earth that God gave us. So we want to remind ourselves that that's part of our job as humans in the world, to care for this good earth. Yesterday we talked about how humans were created from the fertile soil of the ground and put in the garden to till it, to care for it. So we're reminding ourselves that God is still creating, still caring for us, and that we get to help, which is so exciting. I love that we get to help God. Okay, I think I'm done rolling. Oh yeah, this is looking really good. Now, here's the thing about salto, y'all. It is gonna stick no matter what you do. So as soon as you get your cookies in the oven or you get your co-creator helping to cut cookies, I would start rinsing your items pretty quickly. You can always add more flour, but this stuff does stick to everything, and then it gets really hard and really dry and really hard to get off. So please get your stuff in the water to rinse or soak right away. Or as soon as you can, let's be real. I know you all have got some folks have some very new co-creators in the world, so it might be a little harder to leave things unsupervised. Okay, so I'm gonna just dust. It's getting a little sticky, so I'm gonna dust my surface with a little bit of flour. The dough itself, I'm gonna dust with a little bit of flour, just to help my cookie cutters do a good job. Dust your hands a little bit, that'll help. Okay, I should have probably opened these cookie cutters before, but that's okay. We'll get there together. Okay, now it looks like I have an elephant or a rhino or some kind of bee. Oh, here's my elephant. That's gonna definitely get used. I have a horse and an alligator. Possibly a panda or some other kind of bear. Possibly a penguin. It might actually say. Oh, an owl. A monkey. Okay, this guy is an owl. This guy is a monkey. I think the bigger cookie cutters, it's a little easier to tell. Anyway, look at your packaging. You'll be able to tell. So we can just cut our little guys. The beautiful thing about salt dough, one of the beautiful things about salt dough is that we're not going to eat it. So it doesn't matter how many times we roll and re-roll. It doesn't really matter if it's overworked. Oh, this one's a lion. Oh, that's fun. The one I thought was a rhino. He's facing left. I guess they're all kind of facing left. So we're just cutting out our shapes with our cookie cutters. If you have the big cookie cutters, or if you're doing something else, then you will use up obviously more of your surface area on this dough. I'm just gonna start with my 6. Oh, we might have a little bit of a malfunction. That's okay. We can, if your cookies stick, that's okay. What I'm gonna do is pull up the dough from around them and then get a spatula to pull them off. And then again, when we roll out a little more, we can add a little more flour and make them a little bit drier. So you guys can see These are my salt dough shapes, and I'm gonna get a spatula and get these into the oven. But first, I'm gonna use my toothpick and make a hole for the string to go through before we bake and before we paint. So you all can roll and cut as many times as you want. You have probably some extra dough from your first cut of shapes. So you can roll and re-roll and cut as much as you want. And then when you're ready to bake, you're gonna put these in a 275-degree oven and bake them for about 2 hours, maybe even 2.5 hours, until they're dry and maybe starting to turn color. But you want them to be dried out. And then you'll let them cool until they're cool to the touch, or room temperature. And then you'll be able to paint. So I'm not going to demonstrate painting today, but it's easy. Just break out your paints and your paintbrushes. This should work just fine on these little ornament shapes, and decorate your animal nature shapes however you want. And then if you want to put the string through and tie them off for Christmas ornaments, the idea is to remind ourselves in a few months of the things that we learned here at Vacation Bible School. So you can add them to your Christmas tree, you can hang them around your room, you can hang them around your house, you can hang them on the mirror of your vehicle, whatever makes sense to you. If you are going to save them and use them for years, I would recommend using some sealer on them. You can use something as simple as hairspray, but there are sealers available, like clear sealant that you can spray or paint on once your paint is dry. So that is it for today. I'm gonna get a spatula to transfer these over to my cookie sheet and put them in a 275-degree oven for about 2 or 2.5 hours, and you will know they are done when they are firm to the touch, not like a chocolate chip cookie where you want it to still be a little soft. You want them to be dry, no more moisture. And that's it for today. I'll see you later at the rest of our Vacation Bible School activities. Thanks for joining, co-creators and co-creator supporters. See you soon.